has something called the Gemara card. It's like a glossary. I told my son if he knows these Gemara words, he'll have a very easy time in yeshiva. So Avi donated it to the share. I guess if anybody online wants it also, we'll figure out how to get it to them. So a big thank you. Okay, we're going to begin, like I said, on Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis by the Mishnah Yesh Chayev Al Ma'aseh Sheda. You ready? Okay. Now, the Mishnah is going to be dealing with the achrayus that a person has when his share damages and when he himself damages. So the Mishnah says, Yesh Chayev Al Ma'aseh Sheda. There are cases when a person's chayev for an act of damage caused by his ox. If a person's ox damages, there are going to be times that he is chayev and upater ma'aseh atzmai. But he's pater is exempt at the same action if he performed it himself. So if an animal performs this action, the owner will be chayev, but if the person himself will perform it, he'll be pater. And the Mishnah is going to explain. And vice versa. Pater ma'aseh shedei v'chayev ma'aseh atzmai. There are cases where one is pater from liability for the action of his ox, but liable for his own actions. And the Mishnah explains. Ketzad, how so? Now, shedei shebish, if an ox caused a person, let's say busha, humiliation, so pater. The owner of the ox is pater from paying for baishis. However, v'hu shebish, if a person himself was mevayish chayev, he will be chayev. So that's a case, that's like the second case, which we said, pater al ma'aseh shedei v'chayev al ma'aseh atzmai. What would that be example of a shed which was mevayish a person? So the owner will be pater, but if a person is mevayish another person, then he is chayev for busha. Okay. Then the Mishnah says like this. If an ox blinded the eye of his slave. So you have an owner, he owns a slave and he owns a shade. And the shade damaged his eye, or he knocked out his tooth. So what's the din? Pater. He's pater from having to free a slave. Why? No, but that's the din. Even with a dentist, he goes free. Eved Ivri, we're talking about an Eved Knani over here. Right? Again, so Shedei Shishim Sein Avdi Hipa Shinav, so pater, he's pater. Why? Because he did not knock out the tooth. It was the Shed that knocked out the tooth, so he still does not go out, the Eved Knani doesn't go out free. However, but if he himself blinded his slave's eye or knocked out his tooth, so then chayev is going to be chayev, as the Torah says that when you knock out from your eved, you got to pay for it. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that's the first case. So yesh chayev ma'aseh shedei pater ma'aseh atzmai. So those are examples of that the shei will be pater, but in the case of either busha or he knocked out his tooth. But if the guy himself did it, he'll be chayev for busha and chayev for either shtima sein avdei v'ibal shini chayev. Now, by contrast, sheidei shechaval ba'aviv v'imoi, if an ox injured the owner's father or his mother, so chayev, he is chayev to pay for the damages. The owner of the ox is chayav to pay the damages. But if he himself injured his father and mother, he's pater from paying compensation. If an ox set fire to a haystack on Shabbos, chayav, he is chayav to pay the damages. Oh, so let's see in a second. Chayav is chayav. But if he himself, we're going to discuss this later, was madgish, lit the godesh on Shabbos, he's pater. Why? Because we have he is chayev for the death penalty for injuring his father or mother or for desecrating Shabbos. So this will be a case of if his shade damages his father and mother, he'll have to pay the damage. But if he damages his father and mother, he's pater because he'll be chayev to pay. But if he was Magdish to Gadish, he'll be Pater. Why? Because of Kam Lebev. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Tana Rabbi Avo Kameh Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Avo taught the following brayso before Rabbi Yechanan. Kol HaMekalkalin P'turin. Anyone who performs malacha on Shabbos, but it's a destructive malacha on Shabbos, the din is you're Pater. Except for Chutz Mechoyvel Amaver, except for a person who injures another person. So even though on Shabbos you could say, what do you mean, I was mekalkal? But if you injure the person, you're going to be chayiv and umaver. Or if you kindled a fire on Shabbos, Rabbi Avo taught us in front of Rabbi Yechanan that all mekalkal is p'turin except for chayiv umaver. So Amar Lei, so Rabbi Yechanan now says to him, Puk tani libura. Go out and teach it outside. In other words, the brayso is not fit for discussion in the Beis Medrash. Choyv l'maver ain't Mishnah. Now, the opinion that deems that one is chayev for injuring another, or let's say kindling a fire on Shabbos, is not a Mishnah and should be ignored. Now, v'imtim tzalemer Mishnah. And even if you're going to say that it's a Mishnah, choyvel, person who injures another, would be chayev only in the case of b'tzarech l'kalbi, where he requires the blood to give to his dog. And mavir, a person who kindles a fire, would be chayiv only in the case of b'tzarech la'afar, if he needed the ashes. Now, in these cases, the act is not purely destructive, but it has some constructive purpose. So Rabbi Avo taught in front of Rabbi Yechanan that kol mekalkal is p'turin except for chayvel and mavir. This is the brayso he taught. Rabbi Yechanan says it's not a Mishnah. Why? It's not true. Chayvel and mavir, for the sake of it, is also Pater. And if you're going to say it's a Mishnah, only when it's Chayvel Chayiv is B'tzarech L'Kalbi, or Mavir is B'tzarech L'Afari. Okay, tonight we learned in a Mishnah, if an ox set fire to haystack on Shabbos is Chayiv. Why? But if he goes ahead and lights the haystack on Shabbos, he's going to be Pater. And the Mishnah is teaching a case we set the fire in a scenario that is similar to the case where the ox did so. Just as in the case where the ox set the fire, it's clear that he does not need the ashes. The ox does not need, an ox does not act with such kavanah and saying that I'm going to light a gadish on Shabbos in order for the ashes. So again, sheidik on Shabbos is chayiv. But if he does his pater, and this is similar to the case, it has to be dumi the shede. So if shede needs, just like shede, he doesn't need to have the afari. So too, afu, so to him also, the person who's maver the gadish and Shabbos, also the person in this case where he set the fire, Afu nami delay kavali. So too in the case where he set the fire, it's presumably a case where he does not need the ashes. Tani Pater, and nevertheless the Mishnah teaches that he's Pater. Why? Because he's sentenced to death. So what comes out? A person who lights a fire on Shabbos is chayiv even if he does not need the ashes. Which the chayra, this would be Soiser Rabbi Yechanan. Because what did Rabbi Yechanan say? What did Rabbi Yechanan say? We say, Tana Bava Kamah Rabbi Yechanan, that kol mekalkal and p'turin, except for choyvel u maver. And then what did he say? Rabbi Yechanan told him that choyvel is only when you need something. Now, what did the Mishnah say? Shede shehidik as hagadish b'Shabbos is chayiv for the nezek. If he does it, he's pater. And the Mishnah that taught the case of who shehidik as hagadish means that it's similar to the case of shede. And just like the case of shade, he doesn't need the ashes. So too, when he is mavir the gadish, it's also when he doesn't need something. And nevertheless, what do we say? We say he's chayiv. Why? Because needing benafshe, which would come out that there's a chiyuv misa on the malacha of avara, even if it's b'derech kilkul, not like Rabbi Yechanan says. Rabbi Yechanan says that you need something. But our Mishnah uses the expression, the Mishnah over here uses the expression of Shedish Shedikas HaGadish b'Shabbos, Chayiv, and Vehu Shedikas HaGadish. Which means that these cases have to be similar. That both don't need to have the Afara. And nevertheless, we said he's chayiv, even if it's in a way of kilkul. So the Gemara rejects this proof and says, "Loi, no." Sheire dumi didei. The comparison is the other way around. The case where the ox set the fire is similar to the case where he set the fire. The mahu de kaboile. Just as the case where he is chayiv for lighting the fire is only when he needs the ashes. So to the case of setting the fire of the haystack is where he needs the ashes. So the Gemara asks, where can you find a case that you're saying that the sheir or lit the fire for the ashes? So he says, we're dealing with a case like this. Here we're dealing with a case. He's an intelligent ox. He was bitten on his back and he wants to burn down the haystack. What does he want? He was bitten on his back and he wants to burn down the haystack and then roll around in the ashes in order to heal the bite. So over there, the owner will chayiv for paying for it. Now, so Gemara says, from where do we know that this is the reason that he set the fire? So the Gemara answers, the lebasser de kalye komingdar be kitmo. After the ox burned the haystack, it was rolling around in the ashes. Why was he rolling around in the ashes? Because he has a burn on his back, he has a bite, and he wants to make himself better. Now, frankly, are you really serious that there's a case like this? The Gemara says, yes. There was a certain ox that I was at the house of Rav Papa, and I had a toothache. It went inside and it broke the lid of a keli. Drank the liquor inside and was cured. So we see that there's ox that are at a very intelligent level that need to. What's the mice with the ox and the strimel? Oh. Okay. The Chacham said before the Papa, how can you say the case involving his ox is similar to the case involving him? It was taught in the same Mishnah. If an ox caused biyish, he's pater. If the owner's pater, but if he causes damage, he's chayiv for busha. Now, if the case of the ox is to be understood similar to the case involving him, how can you find a case where the ox intended to humiliate the person? One is chayiv for busha, only when he intends to do so. And the ox never has intention to humiliate somebody. So you're saying, no, that they're similar, the case of the fire is similar, ashes, this is also similar to ashes. That, in other words, that they're both needed. That both cases are similar to each other. So haste us that the case of Shedi Shabish is pater, is similar to the case when a person is Mevaish. Now, when a person is Mevaish, he has to have Kavanah. So you tell me the Sheir is Mevaish, he has Kavanah, it makes no sense. So my answer is like this. Kagansh is Kavan the Hazik, is where the ox intended to cause injury. Now, if it was the action of a person, he would be chayiv for busha. He caused as well. Says a person intended to cause injury is chayiv for busha, even if he did not intend to humiliate his victim. Rava says different solution. He says the question you had on Rabbi, the Mishnah is referring to a case where he lit the fire b'shegig. Although he's not chayiv to receive misa, nevertheless, since he performed a isser that would carry the death penalty, where he would perform it b'mezid, he is still chayiv for mumminus. And this is like he says, Torah says a person who kills an animal shall pay for it, and a person who kills a man shall be put to death. One who kills a man and one who kills an animal are comparable. Just as with regards to when one kills an animal, Torah doesn't make a difference whether he does it unintentionally or whether he does it intentional. Whether he does it in a way of yirida or derech aliyah, so, and this was not to exempt him from paying money in all these cases, but rather to make him chayiv to pay money. As a person who kills an animal is chayiv in any event. Af maka adam, so too, with regards to a person who kills a man, there's no difference between shegig and lemezid, bein miskav and l'shem miskav, but derechilil derechaliya, chayvim memen el pater mamen. Now, so we see from here that a person who commits a iser carrying the chi of misa is pater from paying damages for his action, even if he's not in practice given the death penalty. Okay, so he tells him, can you really interpret the Mishnah as referring to a case where it was b'shegig? But it teaches, but doesn't it teach that he's pater because he's sentenced to death, which is only the case if he did it intentional. So Rava says, this is what the Mishnah means to say. Since when his action is performed intentionally. So the person who's over has to be put to death, vehechi dami, and what is the circumstances in which one is chayav to receive misa is the kaboyle afori, where he needs for burning when he needs the ashes. Hashta b'shegig, therefore even now, when it's b'shegig, pater, he is going to be pater from paying damages. Okay, Mishnah, the Mishnah now on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, Shed. The Mishnah says, if you have an ox that was running after, or was pursuing after another ox, and the ox being pursued became injured. Now, the problem is there's no witness as to how it was injured. Ox 1 chasing ox 2 was injured, but there's no witnesses there. Now, Ze'imer, the owner of the ox, of the injured ox, says, so he says to the owner of the pursuing ox, your ox injured my ox, and you're chayav to pay me damages. And this one says, the owner of the pursuing ox says, no. Never happened. It was hurt by a rock. I'm not chayav in that case. So the burden of proof rests upon the person who's claiming it. As long as the owner of the injured ox cannot prove that the injury was inflicted by the pursuing ox, the owner of the pursuing ox is going to be pater. Next case in the Mishnah, in the case of two oxen belonging to two different owners, we're pursuing one ox belonging to a third owner. So Reuven's ox and Shimon's ox, we're running after Levi's ox. And that ox was injured by one of the pursuing oxen. So this one, the owner of the pursuing ox says to the owner of the other, your ox caused the injury. And that one, the owner of the pursuing ox, says, no, it was your ox that caused the injury. So again, what happened over here? You have two oxen pursuing one ox. So the owner of the pursuing oxen says to the owner of the other, it wasn't my ox that damaged the third ox. It was Yenim. It was yours. So each one's pointing the finger. Blame game. So what's the din? The din is that Shneim Pturim, both are going to be pater. Why? Because each of them rejects the claim of the injured party that his ox caused the injury. But if both belong to one person, Shneim Chayav, both are going to be Chayav, as the Gemara will explain. Next case of the Mishnah. Now, if they're pursuing...
What's the happening?
The Gemara says, the Gemara will explain. What do you say?
If it was mobile, but they both belong to one person, it's still that makes me
Right, so the Gemara says, he says it's going to be chayiv. Okay, now, why? Yeah, but he knows one of the oxen for sure damaged.
How do I know what it is? Maybe it fell on the rock.
Okay, so the Gemara is going to explain. Okay, now if the pursuing oxen both belong to one person, and we're both tam, so we know when it comes to paying restitution, it's exclusively paid from the proceeds of the sale of the tam, right? That's the difference between tam and mud. We always say that when it comes to a tam, the tam pays migufay. You pay from migufay, exclusively from the proceeds of the sale of the tam, and mashenkin, the mu'ed, we pay from the aliyah. Okay. So now what happened over here? If one was large and one was small, Hanizik Eimer. So now, if the injured party says to the Hanizik Eimer Gadol Hizik. So the injured party says to the larger ox, cause the damage. So therefore, he's entitled to receive restitution for half the damage of the value. Again, he always pays migufay. How do you measure migufay? So you look at the mazik and you say, how much is your ox worth? Whatever your ox is worth, half of that you have to pay me. So it's worth $1,000, $500 you have to pay me. So what happened there? There's a gadol and there's a katan. The nizik says to the
big one.
The nizik says, your big ox damaged my ox. So now, since it's worth more, so my chatzinezik is going to be worth more. Mazik Omer says, no, loiki ela katan nizik. But the one, chayav for the damage, says, no, the smaller ox caused the damage. And half of its value is not sufficient to cover half of the damage.
Yeah, but there's one ox hurt over here. One ox is badly damaged. So what the mitzvah is? That the small ox, the small ox got hurt. The big one.
No. So not that. This ox, a third ox got hurt.
A third ox. Okay.
Yeah, a third ox.
One more.
1 second. I'm in the middle of a share. Yeah. A third ox.
Third ox. Okay.
2 ox in here, a gadol and a katan. On to Reuven.
Damage from the big one because it's worth.
Exactly. So he says, so his ox got damaged, and he says, who damaged you? He says, your big one did.
Yep.
And the guy says, no, katan. Like yala katan hizik. Now, or echad tam echad mud. Or another thing, the guy owns 2 oxen, echad tam echad mud. Hanizik eimer, the nizik says, mud hizik, your ox which is more damaged. Vehamazik eimer loiki ela tam nizik. So it's going to be a big nafkamina in yeah. What's the din? The burden of proof is always on the person that's making the claim. If the injured animals were 2 oxen, one large and one small, and the ones that caused the damage were also 2 oxen, one large and one small. The nizik says, the big one damaged the big one, and the katan is a katan. The katan damaged the gadol. The gadol is a katan. Echatam echad muad. Same thing. Anisuk emer muad. Hizik is a gadol. Vatam is a katan. Vamazik emer leiki. Elatam is a gadol muad. Sakatan. All these cases. Amir mitzvah mechaveri alabaraya. Okay. Zog the Eilik Gemara. Amar Rechia bar Abba. Rechia bar Abba says. Zoyse meres. Now the Mishnah says in the case where there's a suffix with regard to whether the pursuing ox that caused the injury of the other ox. So what do we say? Always on mitzvah mechaveri alabaraya. So comes out that this is to say that the colleagues of Sumchis, they argue on Chaveir al Sumchis. The Amar Maman Amutu B'Safik Chelkin. Now, Sumchis says that property of a suffix of ownership is divided. So the Cheder, this opinion disagrees. Because we say even when there's a suffix, we say it's famous din of Sumchis. So Amar Sumchis Afilu Bari. Does Sumchis state this principle in the case of Bari V'Bami, where both parties maintain that certainly of their claim? I said, each one's saying Bari V'Bari. I'm like, Sumchis Afilu Bari V'Bari, even Bari V'Bari, which is a suffix, we say Yachleiku. Now, we might must listen to Bari V'Bari. And from where do you know that the Mishnah is referring to a case of Bari V'Bari? They're saying it very, very confidently. Your ox injured my ox, and the one says no, rather it was, which is mashma that you're claiming with certainty. The Papa objects to this interpretation. Just because the first case is talking about bari v'bari, so you're telling me the sefer is also bari v'bari? So aim a sefer. So now let's look at the later case. If one was large and one was small, the nizik says gadol hizik, mazik emer leiki ala katan hizik. Echatam v'echad muzid, nizik emer mud hizik, mazik emer leiki ala tam hizik. Now, which is mashma, that if he does not bring a proof, shakal kedamar mazik, he takes compensation according to the one chayav for damage says. So So l'cheira, if this is a case where both parties maintain certainty of the claim, so tiyufta de Rabbi Bar Nosson, this will be a tiyufta to Rabbi Bar Nosson. The Omri says, Tanu chitim v'hidlei b'seidim pater. The din is, a person, he claims, a famous din, a person claims by another one that he owes him meat. He claims he deposited with him wheat, and the other person says, yes, you deposited, but it was with barley, which is less expensive than the wheat. So the halacha is he's pater from any payment. Why? Because he did not admit to what was claimed, and what he admitted was not the claim. It's a famous din. Tanu chitim, v'hoydei loy b'seirim. Now, why do you say v'hoydei loy b'seirim? So pay the seirim. The answer is he's pater in ganzen. Now, similarly here, the injured party claims that it was the large ox that injured his ox. And the defendant admits that the small ox caused the injury, but not the large ox. So his haidah does not correspond to the claim. So yet, he is apparently chayav to pay according to the admission, which would be soiser Rabbi Nosson. Because what did he say? Tanu chitim v'hidlei b'seidim, he'll be pater. So b'pashtus, so the same thing in the case of the ox, he'll also be pater because it's not the same claim. So Ella, rather, the case must be b'badi v'shema. It must be in the case where there's a certain claim and an uncertain claim. One party maintains certainty of his claim, while the other says it's possible. The Gemara asks, the Kamer bari man, who is the one who states a certain claim? The Kamer shema man, and who is the one who says the uncertain claim? Iname the Kamer nizik bari v'kamer mazik shema. If you're going to say that it's the injured party who states with a certain claim that the large ox caused the damage, and the one chayiv for damage who states with a shema mazik, uncertain claim that it was a small one. Let us say that this Mishnah is a tiyufta to Rabbi Nosson, since the defendant does not admit to the claim of the injured party, and nevertheless he is chayiv to pay compensation for the small one. Ella the kamer nizik shema. Rather, it's a case where the injured party states with a shema claim that it was the large ox that caused the damage. Ukamer mazik bari. And the one chayav for damage states with a bari. Since the guy does not contradict the defendant's haidah, so the latter one is chayav to pay the amount that he admitted that he owes. So Mar says in the sefer nizik shema mazik bari, from the fact that the later case of the Mishnah is referring to a case where the nizik is uncertain claim, and the one chayav for the damage states with a certain claim, the shenam nizik shema mazik bari. Also the same thing, the ratio will be the nizik shema and the mazik is bari. In other words, it's not referring to a case of two certain claims, as we said above. Now, the Gemara asks, and does Sumcha state his halacha that the property is divided even when, in such a case, where they stay with a suffix? That it was necessary for the Mishnah to teach that according to other Chacham it's not divided? Sumchas would agree that in this case, so my answer is loy. No. Seif and nizik, shema or mazik bari. Although the seif is referring to a case where the injured party states a shema, and the one chayav for damage says with certainty, nizik bari or mazik shema. The first case of the Mishnah is referring to a case where the first guy states with certainty, and the one chayav for damage states with suffix. So with regard to this, that the Chacham disagree, the opinion of Sumchas that the property is divided. So the Gemara now questions the interpretation of but according to this interpretation, the first clause is not similar to the latter clause. So why not explain the first case as referring to a case with two certain claims, two bodies? So the Gemara says like this: Amri, they said, body v'shema, in a case of certain claim, an uncertain claim, shemo body, and a case of uncertain claim and a certain claim, chad milsi, it's one matter. Body, shemu body, but in the case where it's a certain claim and a certain claim, and shemu body, then today milinina there are two matters. Therefore, the first clause of the Mishnah cannot be referring to a case of two certain claims. Okay, Gufa, now we're going to discuss the text itself. Amar Rabbi Nosson, he says like this: Tanu chitim v'hidlei b'seidim pater. The din is if a person claims that one owes him wheat and the other agrees to him owing barley, he's pater. What's the chiddush over here? We already learned this in the Mishnah. Tanu chitim v'hidlei b'seidim pater. Why does he have to say this? So he says, Ima asam, if it would have been taught from the Mishnah, I would say that he's exempt from paying the value of the wheat. But at least he's chayav for the value of the barley, because he concedes to the value. How Kamash Malan the Potter Lagami. Therefore, Rabbi Varnasan teaches that the Mishnah that he is completely potter even from paying for the barley. Now, the Gemara now is going to ask a shot. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Hayu hanizakim shnayim. Mishnah says if the injured animals, hayu hanizakim shnayim, if the injured animals were two oxen, echad gadol v'echad katan, one large and the other one small. Now, and the ones that caused the damage were also two oxen, one large and one small. Now, the injured party claims that the large one injured the large one, and the small one injured the small one. And the person who's chayiv claims that the small one injured the large one, and the large one injured the small one. So what do we say? Now, if the injured party does not bring a proof to his claim, shokol kedamar mazik. So he takes compensation according to what the mazik damage says that he damaged. Amai. According to Rabbi Barnasan, why does he receive compensation at all? This is a case mamish which is parallel to the case of wheat and barley. So the defendant should be entirely exempt. So my answer is the Mishnah does not indicate that the injured party receives compensation. It's fitting for him to take compensation. But in practice, he does not take compensation. So the Gemara asks, but didn't we learn but didn't we learn in a brisa that the injured party receives payment for the small ox from the liable party's large ox, and for his large ox from the liable party's small ox? So we do see that he does receive payment. So my answer is the tafas. We're talking about a case where the injured party sees the defendant's ox, in which case the Beis Din allows it to remain in the possession since it was taken api halacha, although the Beis Din cannot compel the defendant to pay him. Okay, the Gemara now raises an objection to Rabbi Barnasan. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Haya echad tam echad mud. We learned in the Mishnah if there was an ox which is a tam and a mud. A nizak aimer, the nizak says mud, hizik es hagadol v'tam es hakatan. If Hamas aimer leiki elak tam es hagadol mud es hakatan. So what's the din? Amitzi mechaver el varayim. Now, l'chayda, what do we see from Halei Ma'aseh Aishak Kedam Ramazik? V'amai, l'chayda, it's a case of Chitim Usayrin Nino. It's mamish the case of Tanu Chitim Usayrin. So my answers and says, Ro'olito. Mishnah doesn't mean that the injured party receives compensation. He's fitting for him to take compensation. But in practice, he does not receive compensation. So the Gemara asks about Tanya, but then we learn how to say Mishtal Mekotim and Amur Lekotim and Gadol, the Tam, the same question. But then we learn that he receives payment for a small ox from the Chiyuv parties, Muad, and from the large from the Tam. So he does receive payment. And for the Gemara, the toughest, no, it's talking about where he sees the defendant's ox. Okay, the Mishnah now teaches, let's finish the perek. The Mishnah teaches in a case where an ox was injured by one of the two oxen that were pursuing. So the din is, the Mishnah said, this is what you were saying, if both oxen belong to one person, he is chayiv. So what do we see from here? Should one learn from the case the fact that both are chayiv, that in the case of a tamim, oxen that caused damage, if the injured party wishes, he can collect damage from the proceeds of the sale of this ox. And if he wishes, he can collect from the sale of that ox. Why? Because they belong to the same owner. The Gemara says no. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with a case of that the shade is shvarim or muadin. In which case, the injured party does not collect damages exclusively from the muad, but rather from any of its owner's properties. Like we say, it's the mula. Therefore, he can collect from either ox as compensation. So, if the Mishnah is referring to the case of a muad, let's look at the seifa of the Mishnah. Now, if we're dealing with muadin, what difference does it make to him which one caused the injury? Safe, made data at the end. Ultimately, the liable party is required to pay the value of the full ox in any case. So Amarlei, Rashi said to him, Seifa b'tamin v'reisha b'muadin. No, the later case of the Mishnah is referring to tamin, and the reisha is b'muadin. So Amarlei, Rabacha Saval Rabashi, ibn muadin. If it's referring to the case of muadin, which we know compensation is not collected specifically from the tam. So why does the Mishnah say chayavin chayav gavrim b'ilei? It should have said the man is chayav. And furthermore, my shneim. What is the word both in the statement? Both are chayav referring to. So the Gemara says, really, we're dealing with the case of Tamin. Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva, which we learned Amar Shutfin, that the injured party, the mazik and the nizik become Shutfin. The time of the Yisnail Travayu, and therefore the reason that the owner of the oxen is chayiv is that the two of them are chayiv. He cannot dismiss the injured party by claiming that this ox is not the one that caused the injury. But if two of them are not available, in other words, if one died or one was lost, he can say to the injured party, go and bring a proof that this ox is the one that caused the damage, and I will pay you. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we completed Hamaniach.